In psychology, we've been learning about memory, and we've been learning about the three different memory systems: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. In this online lesson, we're going to run a little experiment on ourselves to learn about one element of short-term memory, the capacity of short-term memory. Capacity refers to how much something can hold. If you've got like a container, you say the capacity of the container might be 4 liters. So in the same way, short-term memory has a capacity. How much information can we hold in our short-term memory temporarily before it needs to be moved on to long-term storage or before it's lost entirely? So let's have a look at that by running this experiment. Now, it is very important, I need to say, that you follow the instructions I give you and that you don't cheat. We want to learn about the capacity of short-term memory. If you cheat, if you don't follow my instructions, it can mess up the results and then you won't learn what you meant to learn. So make sure you don't cheat and you follow the instructions that I give you. So I'm going to present in just a moment a list of letters. And I'm going to give you enough time to read over them about twice. It's not a very long list. I'll give you about 10 seconds so that you can read through them once, read through them again. And then straight after that, we'll count down from 10 as a distraction task. And then I'll get you with, preferably with pen and paper, but whatever's handy, I'll get you to write them down. So make sure you've got somewhere you can write things down before you proceed with the video. And in just a moment, I'm going to present the letters. Okay, get ready, get set, read over this list of letters twice, go. Okay, we need to count backwards from 10 out loud. 10, 9, 8. Are you counting with me? 7, 6, 5. Out loud. 4, 3, 2, 1. And now write down the list of letters in your book. Go. I'll give you a moment to do it. You can pause if you need to. And we'll move on now. Hopefully you got to write them down. We'll check in a moment if you got it right. So I'm going to present another list of letters now. You know the drill. It's a bit of a longer list, so I'll give you a little bit longer. It should be enough time to read over the list of letters twice, and then we'll count down from 10, and then you'll have a go from memory at writing down the letters in your book. So get ready, get set, go. And time's up. 10, 9, 8, out loud remember, 7, 6, 5, 4, I better not be the only one doing it, 3, 2, 1, and go. Write down the list of letters in your book as best you can. It was more challenging this time. Maybe you can't get as many, maybe you can. I don't know, I'm not there with you. Write down as many as you can. Pause if you need to, and I'll continue now. Okay, so you can check now. How many letters did you remember the first time? Here's the list, DFMLQ. Maybe you got, let's not worry about the order for this one. Maybe you got 3, maybe you got 4, maybe you got 5. That's up to you to know. And then the question is, how many did you remember the second time? It was a much longer list. How many of these did you remember? Now, you might be thinking, oh, I got them really out of order. I think for a list this long, we need to say the order does matter a little bit. Let's say if you got, let's not worry about the order within the first 3, but if you got, let's say you said LTF as your first 3, we'd count that as 3 correct. How many did you get in the second 3? XPG and LTW. So you can sort of divide it up and say, okay, did I remember some of the first ones at the start? Did I remember some of the last ones at the end? That sort of thing. It's up to you to decide what you think is fair. Okay. Now what you should have seen is that you remembered all 5 of these, and you probably remembered somewhere between 5 and 9 of these. And that's because short-term memory has a capacity, it can store 7 plus or minus 2. So that's 5 to 9, because 7 minus 2 is 5, 7 plus 2 is 9, but they always express it as 7 plus or minus 2. So if you found that you remembered all 5 of the first ones, that makes sense because that's how many you should have been able to remember. It's 5. It's the lowest bottom end of the capacity of short-term memory. For the second one, there were 12 letters. It exceeded the 9, and so it's likely that you couldn't remember all of them, probably around 7. Also, we've been talking about capacity. The duration of short-term memory is about 18 seconds. There's different figures. 18 to 30 seconds seems to be about right. So we counted down from 10, which as a distraction task, that took about 10 seconds. And so whatever information was stored in short-term memory should have still been available because we're still inside that 18-second duration. However, as we've already said, if the capacity was exceeded, if you were doing more than 7 plus 2 things, more than 9 things, you probably couldn't remember them all. Okay, we're going to do this one more time. I've got one more list of letters for you just to illustrate another important concept with short-term memory. Same drill. I'm going to present a series of letters. You need to read over them twice. I'll give you enough time to read over them twice, and then you'll write down in your book those letters. So here we go. In 3, 2, 1, read them. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. I hope you're counting. 4, 3, 2, 1, and write them down in your book. I'll give you a moment. Okay, pause if you need to. I'm going to continue now. So, hopefully you found, I'll just go back to the list, hopefully you found you're actually able to remember all 12 of these letters. It's 12 letters, same as last time it was 12 letters, but last time probably you couldn't remember all of them. You could probably only remember about half, whereas here probably you're able to remember all 12. And you can probably guess why that is. These groups of 3 letters, they've been grouped together. We call that chunking. They've been put together into sort of single units so that rather than remembering 12 individual things, we can chunk them into 4 groups of things. And so you actually only need to remember 4 items, not 12, because each of these groups is meaningful on its own. So that is called chunking. One other thing I'll point out, depending on how you went, I'll just go back to this list. So we've learned about the capacity of short-term memory. It's 5 to 9, 7 plus or minus 2. We've learned about the duration. The short-term memory goes from between 18 to 30 seconds, and we were working within that duration. Also, we learned about chunking, that we can group things together to increase the effective capacity of short-term memory. One other thing, I got asked you to read over the list of letters twice, and we call that maintenance rehearsal. To maintain something means to just keep it going, right? If I'm maintaining my home, I'm not renovating my home, I'm not making it new and special, I'm just keeping it going, touching it up, making sure it doesn't fall over. The idea of maintenance rehearsal is similar. Maintenance rehearsal is where we try to keep something in short-term memory by repeating it over and over to ourselves. I asked you to read over the list of letters twice, so I was asking you to do maintenance rehearsal, just dumb repetition. If you found that you remembered more than most of these letters or even all of them, it's likely that that's because you intuitively didn't do maintenance rehearsal, but tried to apply some kind of elaborative rehearsal. Elaborative rehearsal is where we try to add additional information. We try to elaborate on the information. We try to create connections and links between ideas, which helps us to store it and encode it into long-term memory much more effectively. So you could have done that through some form of chunking. Like whenever I see this bit, I always think of the word filter, even though it's out of order. That would help me to remember this bit. Filter, I can sort of chunk it. I could even imagine a filter. I could look at this and try to make up some kind of mnemonic, like an acrostic, like for the lies Roger made. I don't know, I'm just making something up. But again, that would be elaborative rehearsal. I'm adding additional information to try to encode the information, the data, the items, into my long-term memory more effectively, and that would increase my ability to recall it down the track. So that was a little bonus tip about maintenance and elaborative rehearsal and how you might have seen it at work here. One thing I forgot to mention before, and I'll just quickly mention it now, given that we can store 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information, have a think about the length of phone numbers and why you think Australia might have decided to make landline phone numbers the length that they are. I'll leave you with that thought and see you in the next online lesson.